Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. Viewers, as 2019 draws to a close, you have seen that we did an year render before. Today we are not going to do a retrospective program. Today's program is going to be prospective. What to expect tomorrow? What to expect in 2020? This is not merely start of a new year. It is also start of a decade. And since we have seen the previous or outgoing decade that has been quite taxing on nerves, one has to look at things and ask what is in store for all of us. We are going to talk about the political future of the country. We are going to talk about the future of political reform, institutional reforms, economic reforms in the country in coming days as well. Remember, it seems that Pakistan is in its formative phase. We might be able to take off and become a very successful nation, or we can continue the way we have continued for 72, 73 years. So we are going to talk about all these matters and more in today's program. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Raja Faisal, journalist, analyst, quite regular on this channel. Thank you very much for being part of the program. Next to him is Sultan Shahryar Saab, PMLN's representation, but he is a young man and will be speaking not only from his party, but also giving us his opinion. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. And then next to him is Sheikh Amjad Abdullah Saab. He is a legal expert and also a political analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Raja Faisal, I can allow you half a minute to comment on 2019 as well, but then you have to tell us what to expect from 2020.
Well, politically speaking, this government, I mean, when they took the office...
I'm not talking about government, I'm talking about here, remember.
Well, the first year of this government, since they took the office, right, they were facing quite a lot of problems, and they have tried to counter them. Whenever I talk about the political scoring or political scores of this government, I would always talk about the economy, the way they tried to control the economy, and the way they tried to counter the problems which were faced by the economy. That would include FATF as well. And they have brought in reforms in the banking sector and taxation reforms, which really has helped to bring down the deficit of Pakistan.
Current account deficit.
Yeah, current account deficit.
Actually, twin deficits, but yeah.
Yeah, and I believe what I see that there were hurdles for the government in 2019.
Right.
But in the coming year, there is a lot to do for the government, and they would have to do a hard work in the coming days. Otherwise, the problems they already have, political as well as economic, they are interlinked as well.
When you were building up and reflecting on 2019, I thought that now you're going to give us the good news that the ordeals are over and we are going to have something great.
Well, to me,
and then you tell us that once again they are going to be a lot of ordeals.
Well, to me, internationally, I would say the FATF is still hanging on Pakistan. Why? Because it is going to be decided once again in February, end of February, and FATF, it matters a lot for Pakistan because Pakistan's exports and Pakistan's production, it would revolve around it, and Pakistan's economy, it would have a very good effect if Pakistan is out of the grey list.
So you have a Xerox machine and you have just photocopied 2019 and you're telling us 2020 is going to be like 19.
Not like 19, but I would say that there would be quite a few things getting changed in terms of what we saw in 2019, that there were political hustle and bustle, and that would be reduced in the coming year in 2020. Reason being, you have already seen that the leaders who were in the jails, they have started getting out, and it would, the political
they're
parties.
They're getting bails. I mean,
they,
come on. Okay,
you know,
let
they
me-
are getting out of the country,
Okay,
I would say.
let me bring in Sultan Shahryar. Your take on 2019, and then what do you expect from 2020?
I think last year and a half, or particularly if we talk about 2019, as a nation, we have seen a lot and we have suffered a lot. I mean, top of the list were the poor. Putting aside the politics, and if we talk beyond politics,
Right.
2019 was a disaster in terms of price hikes
Okay.
and in terms of economy.
Right.
And a strange phenomenon just appeared in front of us, that it were the poor that seemed to be supporting the rich of this country. I mean, each and everything, the prices, in terms of prices, they were raised, and everyone seemed to be confused that in which direction we are heading.
Okay.
And then if you talk,
Just to actually a very quick, fact check. When you compare the first year of PTI, inflationary pressures during the first year of PTI government, with your party's government in 2013, do you see any parallels there?
no, not too much,
Inflation
but-
was more than this, by the
no,
way.
but if you talk about the GDP, I think it was around 1 or something.
In 2013,
in 2013.
it was in bad shape. Your own
Yeah.
minister used to say.
No, but that's what we inherited. And what
And
we
that's
left-
what they inherited.
No, sir. But the GDP that we left, if I'm not wrong, it was around 5.5.
Okay.
The inflation rate was much lower than it is today. The stock market was in a much better shape than it is today.
No, you're talking about the last year when you were leaving, or at least the first finance minister of your party left, right? I'm talking about the first year. During the first year, you were also trying to stabilize things, right?
But I think we
And you have to actually look at the circumstances and realize that every government, your party is very experienced. This party is not.
But if you look at the performance of the first year that we had,
Okay,
and
2020.
Yep. I think first of all we should pray for the country. We should pray, and we should have the best of wishes for this country, because I think the government or a country, if you talk particularly about the government, they don't have much of lifelines left. I think they don't have a lot of room for mistakes now.
Okay.
If they keep on
Only your party has that.
No. I think no. But when we had the government, we didn't make such blunders. Today, the major problem or the major opposition for this government is the government itself. They have ended up in this position because of themselves. I mean, if you talk about the macro indicators, if you talk about economy, or if you talk about governance, the predictions aren't too good if you talk about 2020.
Have you read IMF's report and
Yeah.
their projections?
Yeah, no, but
And World Banks.
No,
And
yeah,
World
no, but
Banks.
if you talk about, if you talk about
Okay,
Moody's
I
report,
get
if you
it.
go
It
into the
is
detail.
basically, when it comes to politics, our political culture is tribal, right? If my tribe is not ruling the country, everything is bad. If it is ruling the country, everything is great. But we are going to talk about other aspects of 2020. Let me bring in Sheikh Saab as well. Sheikh Amjad Abdullah, your take on 2019. How was the year? Or what were the milestones in 2019? And what do you expect in 2020?
Well, when we talk about 2019, it was a mixed year actually. The government did not perform well on practical level, but on theoretical level, and the way it tried to project itself, it was good. The way Prime Minister projected the government and led the government on different levels, it was a good omen for the country, at least, that when he went, I'm referring towards his speech in United Nations, when he went in front of global community, he did some
Foreign
good
policy.
things. In terms of foreign policy, things were good. But when it comes to domestic politics, you yourself opened the discussion that we as a nation, we are in a formative phase. And we are in a developmental phase. Unfortunately, for more than 70 years, we have been in a formative phase.
Yeah.
But let's hope for best. I am an optimist person. And I
Suspended
see
animation, right? 73 years suspended animation, and now we are kind of forming our body and everything.
Yes, we should expect some good things out of this new year 2020, that 2020 should bring some economic development in the country, and this 2020 should bring political patience in the country on top of everything, that all the political stakeholders should perform in a way that they should respect opposite opinions with open minds and with open hearts. That is the key
Those
for
who
political
don't
development.
are also actually agreeing, nodding vociferously, right? Both of them. Okay, carry on.
Well, this is what I am expecting, that if you want to develop a country on political level, there are so many things which need to be done, and it's a continuous process, and we need to continue.
All right. Sheikh Sahib, earlier you said that the government did a lot on theoretical level, but maybe not on practical
No,
level.
not on practical level.
How do you qualify that?
Well, when it comes to our Prime Minister is very good speaker. He is an expert when it comes to oratory. But there are so many things which are yet to be done on practical level. The way I am seeing it, that economic development has not been the way it should have been. And the way this government...
motorways are not being built right now?
Well, not just motorways, but actually we do not see foreign direct investment the way our Prime Minister used to see when he was on container, when he used to say that once his political party is in the government, we will see economic transformation in the country. But actually we have not seen that. So
right. He was expecting maybe that people like you, people who are affluent, will be paying more to the country, and maybe we all dropped the ball rather than the government?
Well, as I have already said, there are so many things which are yet to be done on legal level as a student of law.
Yeah,
that we need.
I'm glad you brought up legal aspect, because we have to look at the parliamentary performance as well, and then we have to talk about expectation from the next year too. But let me come back to Raja Faisal, if you allow me. Raja Faisal, how do you actually relate to their views? One aspect is glass doesn't have water. Where the hell is the glass, right? On the other side, glass is half empty. How do you see this situation?
You know, it's good that Sheikh Saab has talked about foreign investment in Pakistan.
Right.
Yes, we haven't been getting that, and we need to understand that the previous decade we have been countering the terrorism, and in that, of course, we were not favorable for having foreign investments in Pakistan.
But you say this, but remember that one of the humongous chunk of FDI came during those years, especially during PMLN's government's time, and I'm talking about CPAC.
CPAC, yes.
So, so you realize that the current government has to compete with those.
Exactly. And what I would mention here is that, you know, when it comes to foreign investment in Pakistan and Pakistan's economy and Pakistan's foreign policy, all of these things, they are actually interlinked with each other. Pakistan especially needs to have very good relations with the neighboring countries. Pakistan needs to have very good relations.
Hang on. Which neighboring countries? Identify the countries.
Well, I would say minus India, because no matter how hard Pakistan tries, India never gives you know, positive sign.
So why did you bring up?
Especially.
Hang on. Then why did you bring up the matter of neighbors? India is also going through a lot of crazy stuff,
we
right?
can only hope that whatever is going on in India right now, they can have a political change in their own country.
Hang on. India going through a lot of crazy stuff. Afghanistan, you know how broken that is, right?
Yes.
Iran, highly sanctioned country. Now, which neighbor are you talking about? Are you talking about China, or are you talking about the ocean?
Well, about Afghan peace deal, as it is going on, and Pakistan is playing a vital role in it, what I see that in 2020, we would be having a very positive effect on the Afghan peace deal, and we might end up having a very safe Afghanistan on our western border. When it comes to Iran, we already know that Pakistan is knocking on every door to have a united Muslim Ummah. Yes, you will bring up the recent Kuala Lumpur summit.
I have to take a break here. We have to take a break. When we come back, we are going to resume from here. Take a break. Welcome back. Before going to the break, we were discussing what to expect from year 2020. Raja Faisal was talking to us. He was telling how to befriend oceans neighboring Pakistan. Pray resume from where you left.
Well, I think nowadays, looking at CPAC and Gwadar Port, I think it's very good to have a good relationship with the seas as well. You know, because it's important to have the seas.
Where are you going to get your Sadhguru who says that if you look at water, then its properties change, right?
No, what I was highlighting is, look, our sea is very important. Even I would highlight.
You were. It was a lighter note. We were talking about neighboring countries, right? And I just pointed out that 3 out of 4 are in bad condition. So how do you plan to integrate with them?
First of all, Pakistan has to have peace on the western border with Afghanistan, and one can only hope that it happens in 2020. And when it comes to Iran, Pakistan has few hurdles which can be covered through if Pakistan tries hard for bringing Iran to closer to Saudi Arabia, which obviously
no, but Saudi Arabia is not sanctioning Iran. It is America.
Sanctioning. It's not sanctioning, but
America has really sanctioned Iran a lot.
Pakistan just has to, save itself from that. And when it comes to extended neighbors, Pakistan has extended neighbors in terms of Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia. And Pakistan has an opportunity right now to either join Gulf Cooperation Council. Pakistan must try hard.
We are not part of the Gulf.
We are not part of the Gulf, but when it comes to, advent of CPAC and Gwadar Port, we can be an extension to it, and we could initiate something with the help of Saudi Arabia. Why? Because we recently, we did something for Saudi Arabia.
I respect that you are a poet, a dreamer, a visionary, right? But with due respect, if you were following...
This is my vision of 2020.
Hang on, but if you were following what was happening in Iraq today, the way Hezbollah actually attacked the US embassy, I don't think that situation will emerge where you can actually play that kind of role of bridge builder, right? In that situation, maybe it might not be that an effective idea to actually integrate with that region. On one side, you have India. It is ruled by a bully. And they don't want to actually connect with you at all. They would rather win elections by attacking you rather than working with you. So Afghanistan still is amorphous. You still have to, right? And our relationship is such that we still are fencing the border, right? So you were talking about building bridges.
But we could maintain a sort of trade relations.
So when you are going to write a book, are you going to call it a collection of poems or something else?
But you know, when we are talking about 2020, I mean, I do see things happening, and maybe I want them to happen. Why? Because these things are very important for Pakistan. Having at least one border on the western side, a safe border.
Right. Let us hope in coming days everything changes and everything becomes hunky-dory, but that usually doesn't happen. Sultan Shahryar, foreign policy perhaps is the easiest way out for anybody who is defending the government, because in foreign policy we saw a lot of leadership from the country's leadership. How do you see foreign policy in 2019, and how do you see it shaping up in 2020?
I think we witnessed a slight change in terms of as far as the international camps are concerned. I mean, we were renowned to be someone who had more of a connection with the Chinese camp recently, especially the major factor regarding that was the CPAC. And since this government came into power, I mean, if you look at all the countries that have helped you so far, I mean, whether it's in terms of the aids or whether it's in terms of the money, they almost every country belongs to the American camp. And I think it was a blunt decision by the current government. But I think it's not only the relations, it's the trade now.
Right.
We live in a world where economy is actually the world politics. And you'll have to focus on your exports. And I think more of it's going to be more of an internal issue for you at the moment. I mean, things have changed for PTI.
All right.
Since they came into power, I mean, I would like to
Yeah,
talk
but
about.
I have to actually take you back to the comparison you were building, that most of the countries that have actually come to the rescue, especially the financial rescue, are American camp, right? Saudi Arabia is not divorced from China. They're working together. They don't have any hostility.
but they have-
UAE, no hostility at all. They work together in Africa, elsewhere.
No, sir, but there's nothing wrong with joining the American lobby. But the problem is that the government will have to decide that whether they want to stick with the CPEC or they want to go otherwise.
No, it is not a choice
but,
like that.
But with due respect, if you look
Nobody
at the CPEC,
says that.
No, but if you look at
Chinese
the CPEC,
don't say that, Americans don't say that.
Yeah.
But if you look at the CPEC, I'm afraid, isn't it on a halt from last one
No,
and a
it
half
is
years?
not. No. The second phase had to start and it is SEZs.
No,
So
but
that
the
will take
pace-
some time.
But the pace that it had 1.5 years ago,
I mean,
I think it has decreased.
your government actually went and cut most of the deals which were focused not on infrastructure but energy policy, right?
Yeah,
and
that was the
that was early harvest projects. They gave you what they had to give you. Now the next phase is SEZs, special economic zones. They will take some time to build.
Yeah, you are right, but then again, I think it's the problem of focus. I think they'll have
Whose?
to
Theirs or yours?
governments. They'll have to prioritize. I mean, the CPEC has to be among their priorities, and I'm afraid I don't look at it that way.
Okay. So what is the government's foreign policy priority right now?
I think they seem to be facing a dilemma. I mean, as I earlier said, that there seems to be a confusion in terms of selecting a camp or foreign policy, I would say.
Your party had selected one?
Yeah, it was more of a Chinese oriented if you look at the trade or if you look at the CPEC.
Okay. I don't think your leadership will like to put it that way. You might, but they won't. Sheikh Saab, your take on foreign policy so far and ahead as well.
Well, when it comes to foreign policy, we need to understand the regional environment. We always keep in mind regional environment while making foreign policy, and every country does so. And Pakistan's regional environment has never been conducive throughout the history, and we cannot put blame on one government or the other that they failed to connect with Afghanistan or they failed to establish good relations with India. It's actually the environment, and we need to deal with this reality.
What you are saying is we live in a very rough neighborhood.
Yes, definitely. And if you see the things at broader spectrum, if you see in Europe or if you see in American neighborhood, there is always a possibility that regional environment has never been conducive wherever we see any regional politics taking place. Because
America's atmospherics are not that difficult. They are actually cushioned by an ocean, and they have only two neighbors.
But there
Canada
are,
to the
there
north
are hostilities.
and Mexico
you have
to
to
the
keep
south.
in mind Canadian government, you have to keep in mind Mexico, and you have to keep in mind Cuba as well. There are hostilities, and when you see European politics, but especially South Asian politics is very much fragile when we see the regional dynamics. But Pakistan, when it comes to foreign policy, in my opinion, Pakistan is doing well, because we have to deal with this environment whereby on eastern side we have a hostile country with a country with whom we have fought 4 wars, and we have seen so many military standoffs. And on western border,
this year actually started with a confrontation.
yes, Pulwama attack. Obviously,
Balakot actually, right?
Balakot, yes.
Pulwama was not something that was a policy initiative of either country, but
we
Balakot
have to
was.
deal with this reality. And Pakistan's foreign policy, although foreign policy is not made by just political governments, there are so many stakeholders. And when it comes to foreign policy, we are doing good. And in 2020, we see that things go in right direction, and we expect that all regional countries understand Pakistan's policy of developing economically. That the way China is coming out with Asian Dream, the way China is trying to develop the entire region. It's a positive omen, and Pakistan.
He has pointed out a dilemma that we face, and he was talking about China versus America. I don't think the situation is that worse in that aspect of the world, but there are other attentions, right? other demands of attention from various other countries. For example, one was Saudi Arabia versus Iran. The other was Iran versus America as well. And then there are polarities. And somehow all the countries in the world end up working with India. And they don't say that you have to break ties with the other one or stop looking towards them and then we will talk. They go and just embrace India. It doesn't happen with us. Do you think that there is an easy way out of these dilemmas?
There is never an easy way when it comes to foreign policy. We need to deal with this reality because there are so many reasons why global community look positively towards India and why they have some negative opinions about Pakistan. But Pakistan's foreign policy makers should not put their eggs in one basket. The way my friend was saying that we should opt one global camp and we should leave the other. This should not be the case. We should be calculating our foreign policy interests effectively, and we should diversify our foreign policy.
And that is a fair point, and well taken. And I think that his own leadership will agree with you, because Pakistan was the country that brought America and China together.
Exactly, 1970s.
Right? And it can still do it, and it is very capable of doing it. And by the look of it, the way the US is ready to invest in Pakistan and China is ready to invest in Pakistan, maybe we might end up fusing the two bubbles together.
Exactly.
But I have to, since you are a lawyer, and I have to actually, we have been talking about the executive domain so far. Let us talk about legislative and judicial, spheres of influence as well, because they are very important. How do you rate Pakistan's legislative assembly's performance?
Well, it's not up to the mark. I mean, we need presidential orders for legislation. It's an unfortunate fact.
Okay.
Although the House is divided, although there are so many issues within the parliament, but when it comes to the welfare of the common people, all the political parties should join hands and make some legislation for the betterment of common people.
Right.
But that is not taking place,
It
unfortunately.
should happen, but it doesn't. Why?
It is not happening because
Why?
Because the politicians are not looking at the things the way we are looking, because
Which politician? Treasury benches, opposition benches?
Like all the politicians, because the house is hung, because the ruling government does not have absolute majority for legislation. We need to keep in mind this fact as well.
The house is hung because you made it so. You are a voter and you created such a parliament, which is hung parliament. What do you do with that?
But they should be competent enough to make some legislation out of it for the betterment of common people. As you have yourself mentioned, that judicial organ needs reforms. Right. Because
it keeps on demanding those reforms.
But those
the former Chief Justice kept on asking for it.
But this is not his responsibility actually to make laws.
No, he pointed out that unless you do it, we will not be able to actually deliver solutions the way we are supposed to.
Exactly,
right?
because
especially the junior judiciary, right? That has been happening. The lower courts as well.
Yes. Yeah. But when it comes to lawmaking, it comes under the domain of legislative organ of the state.
Absolutely. So, and that's why I was asking this. Subordinate judiciary has been suffering, and it has created a lot of problem for this society as well, and we haven't been able to fix it. 10 years of PML and PPP government, and now 1 year in this time as well. We haven't seen that kind of legislative business or judicial reform. Why so?
Well, I would only highlight 2019.
Yeah, thank you very much.
2019, I think we do not, entirely blame on the opposition as well. The
Why not?
Political atmosphere of the country during this year, it was as such that, the things were, shaping badly all the time. And when it came to doing legislation in the parliament, of course, government hasn't got the right number for doing so. But when it comes to People's Party, you remember that earlier this year, People's Party, they did say that if there is a legislation that comes in front of us that is to do with the people at large, we would be sitting with the government. And same were the claims from the PMLN as well. But I believe somewhere down the line, the work hasn't been done. And it needs to be.
You could blame the treasury benches if the bills were not tabled. They were tabled late, but they were tabled.
Let's be very fair. I think during the whole 2019, the focus of the government has been on clamping down on the previous governments.
Clamping down on governments.
The corruption of the previous governments.
Be clear about that.
Right? I am. Yeah. Right. You know, the corruption of the previous governments, and they were clamping down on it. Yes. Accountability is important for the country.
No, how so? Because a NAB actually doesn't function under executive branch.
I think the government needs to learn that how accountability and the legislation process would go side by side, how to balance it. I think in the coming year,
Raja
they
Faisal,
will be
before starting this program, remember we were having a lovely long conversation about empirical facts, right? And empirical evidence. To connect one thing with the second thing and the third thing, you have to look at the causal linkages. Right now, when you say that the government is not primarily responsible for accountability, there is an institution which is doing it. And then that in any case is executive branch. You're talking about legislative branch. It doesn't go to sleep. The MNAs are MNAs. So why are they not making laws?
Well, you would agree with me that during this year what we saw was MNAs and senators and you take the ministers, everyone was like, you know, talking about accountability all the time, and they did not focus on legislation. In the coming year, I think they need to put more focus on that, and I think they will be successful. Why I say that? I say this because I see less hustle from the opposition parties in the coming year.
Right. Let me ask the opposition party. Sultan Shahriar, your take on the failure of legislative branch so far?
I think, as you said, the focus has been mainly on the accountability, but rather I would say
Parliament's focus.
Yeah, so that's the debate.
So Parliament has actually made laws about accountability.
No, they haven't. But that's the reality, that our Constitution says that Parliament has to do its own working, judiciary has to do its own working. Each and every institution has a domain, and it has to stay within it. But if you look at all the representatives of this party or their performance from last 1.5 years, they have always had their emphasis on accountability, and they seem to gill each and everyone who has any sort of disagreement with them.
Yeah.
You know,
for example, two parties kept on demanding 4 or 5 months start of the Parliament that Public Accounts Committee chairmanship should go to one man. And that is the president of your party. Finally, you got your heart's desire, right? After that, you started giving names for standing committees, and yet no laws have been made. And after that kind of time spent in a demand, all of a sudden, few weeks ago, the same man quits, and nobody talks about that. Shouldn't there be a compensation by the lawmakers? Remember when PTI had resigned during sit-ins, and your party said, certain people said that they shouldn't be drawing their salaries. So your party, when it is protesting, and when it is demanding only one thing, and that thing is given to you, and then you actually throw it out,
I think,
shouldn't you be compensating?
No, I don't really think so, because circumstances kept changing.
How?
If
This time it is you.
No, but if there had been a fair trial, if
of whose?
No, of each and every person who has to do anything with even the last penny of this country.
No, but
I mean, if
no,
Malam Jabba scammed, would have been
hang on,
questioned.
hang on. Now we are wading into different territories. We still have to stay and look at the legislative branch.
Yes, sir, that's what I'm trying to say.
The parliament.
That let these departments work free and fairly.
Which departments?
No,
Parliament?
No, if you talk about trial, it should be a solely.
So as long as your demands are not met outside the parliament, you are going to continue to hold the parliament hostage?
There is a sentiment, there is the public sentiment that there have been intervention and interfering from the government in the accountability process.
Okay, no, this is a statement from your party. It is not public survey.
But if you look at the facts, if you look at each and everyone who belongs to PTI hasn't been questioned for anything. Why hasn't Malam Jabba scam been questioned? Why hasn't BRT been questioned?
Tell me, how does it relate to legislative business in the parliament?
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, in terms of legislation, that's a different subject.
So, for 5 months, our dear lawmakers who were there to make laws on our behalf and be the watchdogs of the country against executives' overreaches, they kept on protesting and demanding that a man be made head of Public Accounts Committee, Shehbaz Sharif, right?
Yes.
He's made that. And now he is left. And there is no compensation. Shouldn't you, at least your party, say that that was wrong of us to actually continue to stop or block the legislative business?
I think Shehbaz Sharif was given a post, but I think it wasn't the perfect or ideal conditions to work in it.
I'm sure you understand the TORs of Public Accounts Committee.
Yeah.
All audit paras are sent to them, right, by Auditor General of Pakistan, and they have to actually review it. Why do you need that kind of atmospherics in that?
I mean, what I mean trying to say is that the leverage that should have been given to the opposition, it hasn't been given. If you talk about the legislation...
To the chairman of Public Accounts Committee?
I think he didn't have the leverage that should have been given to him.
He was not allowed to enter the room where they hold meetings?
No, he
had
was.
The production orders issued
no,
as well.
he was given...
By the time he became chairman of PAC, I mean, he was allowed to go free. Before that, he was apprehended, but at that time, nobody was stopping him. Exactly. And do you know what happened? He becomes chairman of Public Accounts Committee. The first subpoena goes to Chairman NAB.
Yeah.
You get the picture?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That becomes a problem when there is a visible conflict of interest.
Exactly. When it comes to the development of the country, if we truly want that Pakistan should make progress, we should get out of this blame game, and we should, if we want accountability, accountability should be across the board accountability, and we should work for the betterment of common people. Unfortunately, all the politicians, they are working for their vested interest. Nobody is talking about that people of Pakistan, more than 50%, the way government is putting it, that more than 50% people are still below poverty line, and nobody is talking about them.
Sheikh Saab, you made a very good points, but with due respect, you realize that we are only 2 hours away from the new year, and you said something which was generalization and is going to give a lot of people, including me, huge depression. You said none of the politicians are thinking about the country.
Well, this is the case,
There's
actually,
no
but let's hope for the best.
There's no hope in the country.
No, this is not the case. There is always a hope.
There are people who are thinking about the country. There are people who are thinking about the country.
Maybe there are people. That is why Pakistan is making progress. That is why Pakistan is still a stable country. We need to understand that in order to move forward, we need to identify the problems and the root causes of the problems, that where we are lagging behind the regional countries. When we see that regional countries are making progress in economic terms, that Pakistan is lagging behind. So we need to put the fingers at the right direction, and then after highlighting the issues, we should come up with some solutions. And the solution is that all the politicians, the way I have already said, that politicians should work for the common people, because without the common people, without the citizens of any state, without their development, there is no nation. If we want development, if we want that Pakistan should thrive in future in 2020, we should work for their betterment.
Right, and that is good on the should list. Will or will happen list is different from should list, right? I am just told that we have to conclude the program. This is the last program of this year. Sheikh Amjad Abdullah, I have to thank you. Thank you very much for being part of the program. Raja Faisal, thank you very much. I mean, all of my guests are like, one is Raja, one is Sultan, one is Sheikh today. But Raja Faisal, thank you very much for your time as well. All the kings, right? Sultan Shariar, thank you very much for your time as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. One thing that was said earlier, that Pakistan still is a stable country. And that is quite an interesting thing, because 5 years ago, we thought that maybe this country is not that stable. Remember, our schools were raided. Terrorists used to kill anybody they wanted to. And then Pakistan fought back, and today I can very comfortably say that there are hardly any areas of the country where I can not go. Excuse me. When you talk about such circumstances, when you talk about a nation that has fought such a big war on its own turf, on its own soil, and yet survived to tell the tale, it tells you of something that Nassim Nicholas Taleb actually calls anti-fragile, things which are actually strengthened by crises rather than weakened. Pakistan is that kind of nation. But remember, it doesn't mean that we have to keep on creating crises to make it stronger. We have to try finding solutions as well, right? Here is hoping that in 2020 we will learn lessons and try not to create more crises and find more solutions. If that happens, this country can really go far ahead. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us, and thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you.